Okay. Om, om, om. Om. Omkaram bindu samyuktam nityam dhyayanti yoginaha kamadam mokshadam chaiva Omkaraya namo namaha. Om Namah Shivaya Gurave Sachidananda Murtaye Nisprapanchaya Shantaya Niralambaya Tejase. Om. Okay.
Yeah, I'll ask a question that I've been avoiding asking for weeks, and I don't even know why, but it's telling that I've been avoiding this. You said many weeks ago something to the effect of it's just pointing out like a very sort of obvious way that the false self operates in us. But it was said in such a way that it hit me really hard. Something to the effect of like, it'll keep giving you things to do. The interesting thing about this is like, when you said it, I felt this really intense dread. And I was like, oh, there's something there. And then after the satsang, I tried to go back and I asked Krishna Priya if she could send me the video like prematurely before it was like looked at. And then I tried to go back and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find what you said again. And anytime I try to think about this, I get really foggy. Um, when I so a lot of us probably don't know. So I've had like really intense OCD for several years now, and um, I remember when it first. I remember very clearly, like when it first started, in a very mild way. I was, I had come back from a retreat, a meditation retreat, and I felt like my mind getting very, very quiet. All thoughts were like ceasing in the few days after this. And then this one thought appeared that was like, oh, something's happening here. And it was very sort of a benign thought. And it was like, but before it happens, I want to make sure that my stuff is in order because I don't know where I'm going here. uh, and it was very benign. It had to do with like making sure like it's the sister, making sure like my bank's payments were on like auto pay or something. I was like, let me make sure like that kind of stuff. Like let me make sure that's all set so I don't have to so I can just let go, let this thing happen that seems to be happening. It just that was like 3.5 years ago, just no, 5 years ago, and just spiraled out of control from there without me even knowing. Um, so this idea that it'll keep giving you things to do, and in particularly, you said something like with the and it'll like in that it'll like convince you that you're getting closer to something. Um, for the first year and a half that this was happening, I even felt like it had convinced me that it was part of my spiritual practice to that extent. Like if like preparing all of these uh preparing to let go in this way was actually part of my spiritual practice. In hindsight, I mean, obviously I can see that it was just giving me more stuff to do, convincing me that it was necessary. 5 years later, it hasn't stopped. It doesn't look like it will. Um, I can't break this. I was hoping that you could continue that thread of thought.
Okay. I think you see it pretty clearly. When when we stand at the precipice, we could say, there's this desire to get your affairs in order. And for me, it was always taking mental notes on writing letters to the ones I loved, in particular my children, because it feels like dying, You feel like you might actually, actually die. This habit of self-improvement, preparing to surrender, preparing to let go. It's a very strong habit, and you've seen through it, You see through it, and then it persists. Even in your seeing, it persists. It's this way. The preparing to let go is nothing more than clinging. It's a bit of a mental acrobatics, calls itself preparing to let go, which is actually clinging. You see this, yes? Yeah. So somebody gives you a hot rock out of the fire. You don't prepare to let go. You drop it. And it will get this way. You know? It gets hotter and hotter. I remember so often the sense that, this is the moment. I've been sitting here in my quiet, in my stillness, waiting in the bridal chamber, keeping the lamp lit for the bridegroom. And I think I hear him coming, and then I'm like, oh, no, no, no. I just have these. Can you come back in 5 minutes? Or tomorrow? So busy. You know, God comes knocking, and you're like, it's not a great time, Lord. So many things to do. I have to set up my auto pay. Right in the middle of an email. It's so tricky, isn't it? I remember some years ago thinking, okay, well, I see it. It'll come when I'm not paying attention. It'll happen when I'm not seeking. It'll happen when I'm not seeking, and it'll happen when I'm not resisting. And it only needs a nanosecond of in-between space for God to come rushing in. Right? This is mercy and grace. I knew it. So I thought, well, there's just sitting still and waiting. And then I thought, also, in the meantime, let me prove my sincerity to my own self, to God in a way. From that place that I was looking from then, I wanted to prove myself to God. And so from this, some doing was prudent. And it was, and is. But the point of it is a preparation, is a clarification, a purification, we might say, as long as we don't misunderstand it. Purification is clarification. Increasingly subtle. But when the moment comes, you either receive it or you don't. So no, all of the preparation is for that moment. The unexpected knock on the door. Will you drop everything and go? I often think of what it was like for Simon Peter. I don't know too much about it, you know. But I just wonder, you know. I imagine he was an upstanding member of the community, a fisherman, which probably had some sense of wealth and responsibility. I imagine he had a family. Would have been very unusual for a man to not have a family. don't know, did he just drop everything and go? What would you do? Is some self-critique sneaking in on you? Don't let it. And what would have all of his friends and relatives said? Some man named Jesus comes through town and he drops everything and follows him. What would they have said? So there's that. There's this aspect of, and now you say the mind takes that moment and the preparations beget more preparations. Yeah? And it snowballs. Huh? You experience this, as you've shared with us, as something called OCD, which is, it's a real challenge and a legitimate diagnosis and something that it's important for you to work through with doctors. But it also shows an exaggerated version of what it is to be bound in the egoic identity. In a way, you're lucky. Not totally unlike the alcoholic, which is just an exaggerated experience of addiction, which addiction is the fundamental paradigm of the egoic identity, is addiction. Have you ever heard in AA, sometimes you hear people say, I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. Is that an odd thing? Grateful for my addiction, grateful for my OCD, grateful for any affliction that we have. That shows us the world as it is, and an extreme example, like a caricature, exaggerated, so that we can't mistake it. So whatever you share with us about your experience of OCD, we should all understand that we all have this. Obsessive, compulsive, yes? So it's good to know what are our obsessions and what are our compulsions. Compulsion is conditioning, isn't it? Conditioned response, it's compulsive, automatic. In a way, you could say, can't not. And what's particularly frustrating is when you're aware of these compulsions and seeing that they're not beneficial, and still they don't stop. And we were talking about this recently, quite separately from OCD, but this is what your experience is with that, is that here I recognize the patterns of thought and behavior aren't necessarily conducive to my well-being, and yet they persist. And I'm aware of it, and yet they persist. And seeing it is almost more frustrating than just being blind in it. There's a story that I know only vaguely. A genie comes and offers infinite wishes to a man. And so he asks for all these things, wealth and reputation, prestige, etc., the things that people would ask for. Yes? The problem was, when he ran out of ideas, the genie kept creating for him and making a mess of this and that. So he had to give it something to do, couldn't give it nothing to do because he was busy making a mess of his life. So the story goes, he plucked a hair out of his beard that was curly, and he handed it to the genie and he said, "Straighten this." And you can't straighten a beard hair. This story is often used as an invitation to do mantra. That your mind is a genie, and having you do so many things, creating so many things, creating so much trouble, but it can't not and it can't stay still, and so you give it mantra. And so you keep the mind occupied. There's so much more to mantra, of course, but this is one tremendous benefit. To give the mind something to do that's not creating trouble for you. I can't, of course, as we've said, I don't have any prescription for OCD and very little understanding of the diagnosis, other than what little I surmise about the predicament of the egoic identity. And that's not sufficient to anyone suffering from OCD. But it does illuminate something for us, and for you also. The list of to-dos is endless. There's always just one more thing, Lord. And in one way, the practice of meditation can be so beneficial in this way. Because if only for 5 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour, there's nothing to do. Then you can habituate yourself slowly to this notion, there's nothing to do in this moment. And gradually can bring a slow end to the momentum of something to do, something to figure out, some problem to solve. Of course, for the most part, not realizing that the problem was created in order that it be solved, and there will be another one on the heels of the solution. You'll maybe even forget the problem and the solution and recreate the very same thing over and over and over again. There really isn't any solution other than be still and keep quiet. And we know this is not an easy thing for us to do. And all of your practices are getting yourself slowly habituated to the ability to be still and keep quiet. When the momentum of mind is so powerful and so forceful, we know how difficult it is, how painful it becomes to try and sit still. Yeah. Probably you've already seen it in yourself. It's so easy to see in the world. Go to any waiting room anywhere. Instantly a phone comes out. Instantly the foot starts twitching up and down or the knee starts shaking. Instantly for a magazine. Even to stand online at the coffee shop. Not a quiet moment. You may wonder, how is it possible that we've all become so uncomfortable simply being with ourselves? How is that possible? Why is it so hard to meditate, to sit still? There are so many paths, and all of them 100% legitimate to get to the point where we're able to keep quiet. So many practices, so many traditions, so many religions, so many belief systems. Every single one of them has their point of view, and it's legitimate. You all have your own practices of what you're doing in order to come to this place. So, this stillness is the waiting room, the bridal chamber. It is the place of surrender. You can let the mind say everything it wants to say. You can let the mind think anything it wants to think. You just don't listen. You just don't obey. And if you find yourself being obedient to it again, okay, no problem. I imagine this is very, very, very difficult with OCD. It's hard enough without. So. The stillness can start as something so teeny tiny. And then the more you bring your attention to that teeny tiny stillness, just a microsecond, within a second even, and you bring your attention to that, it will grow little by little. You bring your attention to the comma, the pause between thoughts, even if you've just got this a sliver, a hair's width you can put in between thoughts, and you focus on that hair's width. It will grow. And then you fit another little comma, and a third. Now you've got 3 commas between thoughts. Yeah. And it's through that space that you make contact with what you are, have always been. Also, you'll have the experience, already are having the experience, have had the experience of life improving. Quality of life improves. The more space in between thoughts, the more silence in between speech, the more rest in between actions. This is mastery. The rest of it is running, how does Swami Shivananda say it? Hither and thither. So many things to do. It's in that space between thoughts that you will come to know. You let the world keep saying this and that. You resign. We could say it this way, and it's true. The end of thinking marks the beginning of knowing. And from this place of knowing, you can reclaim your mind. Make it your representative. Make it work for you instead of it making you work for it. What do they say? Makes a terrible master and a beautiful servant, the mind. I remember coming to this. I came in my own recognition on my couch in Bethesda. And it dawned on me that I had no idea where thought comes from. What are its constituent parts? When does it come from? What is my relationship to it? I had no idea, and yet I knew I had so many preferences, and I saw that my opinions were preferences sort of woven together, And now I have an opinion. And then my opinions, I wove them together and I created beliefs. And in them was a me, just a weave. This I, this egoic I, really was nothing more than a collection of thoughts, woven together as preferences and opinions and beliefs. And I thought, I have no business speaking until I know what thought is. Because all speech comes from thought, yes. And if I didn't know what thought was, how could I possibly say with any confidence anything ever? You see? And then I knew. In order to know thought, I would have to see thought from not thought. You see? To know thought from thought is simply a dog chasing its tail. I knew this. It was so clear to me, maybe from some past lifetime or something, I don't know. But I saw that to engage thought from the place of thought was just a looping. So I saw I had to know what is no thought. And to look from there at thought, then I could see for what it was. But I didn't have access to no thought. So, I had to use thought, use intellect to expose the qualities of thought itself, of intellect itself. To use a thorn to remove a thorn. I had to use intellect in order to expose the fallibility of intellect. And then in this process, thought the weave begins to loosen. Because basically a thought would come, an opinion would want to be spoken, and I would say, prove it. Is it true? Is it really true? Based on what? And then time and time again, with repetition, prove it. Prove your opinion is valid, any better than anybody else's opinion. Prove that your belief is more solid than anybody else's belief. And I couldn't do it. The habit continued, of course, believing this, judging this one, judging myself, all of it coming from thought. And then eventually the mind begins to attenuate, the grip begins to loosen, and it begins slowly to fall away. And in this, knowing dawns. Knowing meaning knowingness. Means knowing without learning. Also means knowing without any particular ambition to prove it to anyone. Huh? Really, in a way, it becomes clearer and clearer. This knowing cannot be articulated, but no less real. In fact, more real as it clarifies. You're going to see. This, I think, probably is something akin to the practice of neti-neti, of advaitic or non-dual contemplation. But I didn't have any of these tools or any of this, I didn't have any understanding of neti-neti or anything like this. It was simply sitting on my couch and contemplating, wanting to know. And I think this is important to share, not because I'm so great that I figured it out. I mean, that's even absurd to say. Not that I'm so great that I just, no, it's the opposite. I share it to say that this is totally 100% accessible to anybody who looks with some persistence. It means I'm not special in any way whatsoever. It's totally available for anyone who sits still and just with a disciplined approach, proving it is what I think true. The world has always been the world. It's never not been this way, but it seems pretty exaggerated now, doesn't it? There's a really crazy thing that I discovered. We have 2 Facebook pages. One is the community page, and the other one is my so-called personal page. So one is Peter Nataraj is my personal page, and then the community page is called Nataraj Bhajan Kutir, right? So in my personal page, there's one point of view, and political or sort of worldview. And in the other page, it's the completely opposite feed. I thought, so if I log into one of them, it feeds me everything it thinks I want to hear from that point of view. And when I log in as the other one, it feeds me the exact opposite. I once sat on, I don't remember exactly. I remember I sat next to a Google executive, a woman who was very high up in Google, and she was managing at a very high level the Google algorithm. And I remember telling her, I said, this is how consciousness is. That the whole world is an inkblot test. The whole thing is confirmation bias. The world is an algorithm that feeds you what you want to see and hear. You make it what it is. So we have preferences and opinions and beliefs, and then the world will deliver that to say, you're right. And it doesn't matter what your opinions or beliefs are. The whole thing is a confirmation bias. What it means is that it means nothing except for what you make it mean. So be careful what you make it mean. It'll keep you very busy. And if you wish, it'll make you very unhappy. It seems so real. But you will see when the mind falls away and the echo chamber just dissolves. You'll see. It may be disturbing at first. It's not that the world becomes meaningless. Actually, whatever paltry meaning we had assigned to it before from our, how can I say gently, from our own delusion and illusion about what it is. The paltry meaning of the world blossoms into something so much more beautiful, sacred, and meaningful than anything we could have imagined from the place of I'm right. Much more intimate and personal than anything we could have imagined. And oddly, in the end of Neti Neti, nothing is rejected. Simply, all that happens is you see through the false, meaning you see through what wasn't real. So, when opinions come, ask yourself, is it true? Is it really, really true what I think? How is it that I think this and that one thinks the other? How did they come to that and I came to this? You must ask. You must dig deeper. Where did I come across this belief from? This doesn't make belief a problem. Like, belief itself can be the most sacred thing. But the moment you use it as a weapon of unhappiness against yourself or another, you've missed the mark. There's so much of this in our world. The ones claiming God, to know God, and using it as a weapon, some way to elevate themselves, to condescend others, to preach. This one, claiming they know God, doesn't even know the one that's moving the tongue. Those who know do not say, those who say do not know. Thou shalt not use the Lord's name in vain. To elevate ourselves, to condescend or even assault another. This is the great vanity.
My experience of listening to you speak about this is so odd because I know like everything that you're saying, and I agree with it because it's my direct experience. And yet I find that there's very few points where it actually breaks through on a meaningful and on an impactful level. So strange. I mean, one such time when it did break through was when I was referencing several weeks ago when I felt this sense of dread. And then somehow the way you spoke about this during this meeting, at some point, referencing like how something to the effect of how Eckhart Tolle says, like the firefighter is the arsonist, and how that whole thing, that whole world of feeling like a firefighter fighting the arsonist, in that world, it's so convincing that you don't feel right, or you don't feel good because of the fire, when in actuality it's because you believe of the whole situation that there's a firefighter and a fire. It's so insidious, and it's also so obvious when we're looking at it in reflection, and yet so few times does pointing it out have this really deep impact. Most of the time, it just, in my experience, it just stays on this surface level, except those few times where it really hits, and it's like, oh my God. It's just odd. Just pointing that out.
Yes.
Yes, the detective is the thief.
The
The
firefighter
firefighter
is
is the arsonist.
The
The judge is the defendant. Oh, yes.
Can I share something?
Yes, please.
I'm just wanting to share my experience during this satsang, listening to you, and the mind having an absolute fit, complete temper tantrum, and just noticing it grasping at anything that it can, finding nothing. And it wants to anchor to something. It's looking for something to anchor to. I don't know, it's much more than that, but I just felt like sharing. I'm going in and out of complete awareness of it, and then feeling agitated by it. You know, being in satsang and listening to you is helpful to be able to be observant of it. But it's just a complete mess. It's like, I see it as just this big knotted mess. And it's just having complete temper tantrum.
Yes. This is how it is, isn't it? I mean, it's very simple. Somehow, the I becomes entangled in and identified as the mind. And so when the tangle loosens, it feels like you are dying. That last knot that you're anchored to, huh? when the whole thing dissolves, the whole matrix or lattice, the weave of mind, this is when it falls away, this is how you know there's no such thing as death. It's not a concept. This is how you'll know it. When the mind falls away, you're detached at least from mind identification, you'll see there's no such thing as death. This is what's meant by everlasting life. Did you also know the yogis say that body is a product of mind? That that creation, that Shakti moves from subtle to gross, ever more gross. Body is, I don't know, as far as I can see, the last stop. But some people have this debate. Are you a human having a spiritual experience or a spirit having a human experience? You see, this whole thing is happening inside of you. You are happening inside of you. You already know it. You just can't quite see it because you're the awareness that's aware, as awareness. And you are in that awareness. So this you that you think you are is actually happening inside of you. And when you come to see that, and it becomes unbearably light, there's nothing to anchor to, nowhere to put your foot, no guardrail to hang on to, it feels like dying. It's terrifying. But it's not actually dying at all. It's the opposite. It's awakening. You know, do you think if the dream character knew you were waking up, it would be terrified because it's the end of it? Huh? So, of course, there's going to be fear because you're identified with mind. But the whole point of this is you're aware of your own thoughts. These thoughts are not yours. You're not defined by them. It's not even true, but we could say you are what remains when the thoughts fall away. But remains gives it a sense of, So this is what happens when you come into real satsang, where there's a fire or a sense of dissolution. It's called laya yoga, a dissolution of the identities. The you that you think you are will fight it with everything you've got. It will become angry, it'll become judgmental. It'll say, this is crazy. It'll fall asleep. It'll become foggy, heavy. You'll get sick. It always seems in the deepest moments, especially in person with people and in some of our early kirtans where there was so much silence and so much presence, inevitably somebody would have to get up and go to the bathroom or check their phone right at that moment when the whole thing is about to blossom. And they're not to blame. They don't know. Somebody will say something right at the precipice. The mind is always doing this. Satsang can make people very angry. Make people very tired. Can get sick even. Muji, I think he called this satsang flu. And he would say, you come sick. You lie in the back. Lie down. You just be here. the thing is that this freedom that you're seeking is freedom from who you think you are. It's never been true anyway. And these are the death throes. One crazy person came at Master Shivananda with an axe during one satsang. Do you know the story? It's wonderful. So I'll tell you. So Swami Shivananda, a Maharaj, he's offering satsang. And he sees it coming. A man is charging up the center aisle of satsang with an axe. Just misses him, grazes him with the axe. And a bunch of the swamis, the disciple swamis up in front jumped on the man to subdue him. And you know what Swami Shivananda says? He says it to Swami Vishnu Devananda. He says, Vishnu Swami, mind your emotions. Huh? Mind your emotions. And then, of course, out of obligation, being in the world, calls the police take the man away, and the next day he goes to the prison and does a puja at the man's feet. When you come into the presence, the mind will throw a storm your way. The whole Maya will throw a storm your way. It's very common, actually. Something urgent will arise to invite you back in. It's not a cruelty, actually. It's just the world saying, are you sure you're done playing? Are you sure you're really done suffering? Do you really want to relinquish the role of victim and perpetrator? Are you really ready to resign from right and wrong, good and bad? Just inviting us back in. Just one more. Anybody ever tried to quit anything before? Smoking, drinking, thumb sucking, fingernail biting? When does it get hardest? The moment you decide to stop, isn't it? This is all that's happening. It's just a tantrum. And just like you do with a tantrum, you ignore it. You love the child and ignore the tantrum, and it will pass. Engage in the tantrum, watch out. Child becomes very difficult. So the mind will do this. But remember, you're not the mind. So let it do what it wants to do. Just don't be obedient anymore. No need to quiet it or stifle it, and certainly don't indulge it and obey it. Fatigue comes. Do you mean it? Do you want to be free? Then figure out a way to stay awake. If the anger comes, figure out a way to be okay with the anger. But you stay focused. It has so many disguises and so many strategies and so many ploys. Huh? You just watch.
7 minutes.
Okay. You see that preferences arise out of thought, opinions arise out of preferences, beliefs arise out of opinions, all of them from the seed of thought, and you must know where it comes from. What is thought? Where does it come from? And what is your proper relationship with it? You must know. And the process of this knowing is to make your opinions speak back to you and prove that it's true. You must start with a loving disbelief of every opinion and belief that you have. Anything that's worth keeping will come back for you. If it's worth believing, let it prove to you that it's true. There are some things that will remain. Most of it will be probably the tradition of religion that you grew up with will present through this, and it's worth holding on to. But first, make it prove itself. In order to come to know what thought is, you must know what thought isn't. In order for a fish to call water water, it has to know air. You see? So you could say the only proper use of intellect is to expose the the fallibility of intellect. Let me try again. You could say the only proper use of intellect is to expose the fallibility of intellect itself. You must ask, is it true what I think? Then the clinging will loosen. The identification to mind and thought and opinions and beliefs will loosen. And knowing will come through, and this will aid you in further loosening and detaching. In the end, you don't reject anything. And nothing that is true will fall away. Om. Om, om, om. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May the entire universe live in peace and joy, love and light. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. You know, maybe one of the most powerful ways of awakening is to wish to see with all your heart the divinity in another, to elevate the awakening of another, to place no limitation on anyone else. This will benefit you the most. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all the beings in the universe be happy. May all the beings in the universe be free. You will not be left out if this is your prayer. And it works both ways. To judge another, condescend. Same. Be the great well-wisher of everyone you see and know. This is your most sure path to your own freedom and your own joy. Thank you. We make this what it is. Make it something beautiful. beauty is truly, truly in the eye of the beholder. Make thine eye beautiful. Long to see the sacred divine perfection in all things as they are, because this is true. This is the truth. In doing this and practicing this with sincerity, it will be your truth also. It will be your honest truth. Swami Shivananda says, Lord, let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. And because I'm Catholic, I always say amen. I don't think Swami Shivananda said amen. Maybe he did. Amen. So hum. So hum. Okay. What a beautiful thing that's happening here. I'm so glad that we're doing this together. I find myself thinking and praying for you constantly. I'm bringing you every time in the Ganga with me, 3 times a day now. And maybe you also can do that for everybody here. The whole group of us holding everyone in our heart. You know? And so many people are struggling too, you know? It helps on so many levels to be in this cocoon together. Om. Okay. Love you, love you, love you. Thank you so much.